with a sociology degree, was going to go into healthcare, had a mental breakdown post grad, as everyone does, and was like, "This is what I want to do. Oh my god, I'm lost. I'm lost." So
Same
then,
hat.
yeah, right. But basically, I guess I wasn't that great at networking, and I didn't realize how big a games community there was. So how I got into games was I sent like 500 applications out to like studios. I was like, I hope this works. I hope someone contacts me, and one did, and here I am.
And it was the match made in heaven. Yeah, I think it's so cool. It's really interesting because I find that across the game industry, people come into it from just a wide variety of touch points, but especially folks in community, there seems to just be such a wide array of skills and backgrounds and like things that we bring, which I think also makes this part of game development and being in the game industry really interesting. So with indie games,
Oh
it's
wait, I
oh.
think
There's
we
a
need to do
note.
intros again.
Yeah.
Oh, yay, more intros. Awesome. We're live on Twitch now. Welcome,
That
everyone. So we just were chatting about life after grad school, but let's do another round of intros just because we're reconnected. So if you're just tuning in, my name is Jenny Windom. I'm the communications manager for Rose City Games, a Portland-based indie studio, and I also spend a lot of time highlighting games, highlighting indie games and wholesomeness and discussing intersection of games with lived experiences at a variety of touch points. We have Emily, I guess, to this side of me. And Emily is a content creator for Computer Lunch Games, and she focuses on managing social communities and releasing content for Cell to Singularity, which is an idle clicker mobile game about evolution. And right here is Catherine, who is a community manager from Queens, working across a range of PC, consoles, and mobile titles, and is currently the social marketing manager at Digital Continue. And finally, last but certainly not least, is Victoria. And Victoria is the communications director at Kit Fox Games, a studio in Montreal with games such as Boyfriend Dungeon, Lucifer Within Us, Dwarf Fortress, and Mondo Museum. So that was the lovely Cliff Notes. Now, we talked a little bit about how we got into the gaming industry, but I'd like to move into what makes indie games such a unique area to work in, and particularly in the respects to what makes it interesting to build communities for indie games in particular. I think anyone who wants to take it, feel free to jump in.
Okay, I will begin then. I mean, so much of I think indie games and what makes it so fun is that I mean, I guess it's sort of similar to starts in that you get to create the world that you want, provided you have money and time, of course. But it is just you allowing yourself to explore whatever world you wanted to create, whatever world you've dreamed of. I think it's especially an amazing avenue for a lot of marginalized people in the group because you don't have to go through like the corporate shenanigans of like pitching your game and all that. Like obviously you need certain things to make it happen, but you could honestly just build a game and not market it if you really wanted to. It could just be something for yourself. And I think from that's what stems from like why the community is so amazing, because you have so many different stories and so many unique mechanics that indie games can create, that having a diverse community as well is so fun and so interesting to interact with, because you are bringing people together, right? It's not just a product anymore. It is a community thing where people will talk about it, people will bond over it and connect with you through it. So that's why I love indie games.
Yeah.
Oh, I also completely agree with you. I was mostly gonna say those kinds of things as well. But on the other side of the coin, working within the indie game industry is also really special because it feels like it's full of all of these passionate people who are very genuine about what they do, as opposed to just working in a corporation 9 to 5, like, just clocking in, clocking out. Um, Cell to Singularity is actually created by Computer Lunch, who is part of a game collective called Gumbo, which is full of indie developers. And I feel like that kind of tight-knit community is really, really special, and you don't really get that anywhere else. So working within the indie game industry offers a lot of opportunity for people to be able to come in, whether they're starting as a hobby and they're like, oh, well, I'm just interested in making games. They could easily start a career just simply being encouraged by other indie game developers.
Yeah, and I think one other thing I'd like to add is like it's really it's cool because indie games also give you the opportunity to like kind of grow alongside your community since especially if you're like a smaller studio, there's a lot of room to just kind of explore your fan base as you and it are growing over time, you know, and it's a little bit more of an intimate experience, I guess.
Yeah, it really is. I think that's one of my favorite things because you get to know the people within your community very closely and very quickly because the scale is just so much less than you see with AAA games or just the super, super big studios and platforms. So, kind of rewinding, we sort of talked about what's unique for indie games, but let's get down to sort of the brass tacks and sort of the fundamentals of building a community and what that entails. Platforms are very important. We all use them as community managers to reach our audiences. Are there platforms that you prefer for specific purposes? And could you go into detail on why you really enjoy using them?
I'm personally a big fan of Discord. I think that goes for a lot of people. But especially since like they've been very receptive with meeting the needs of not only the people who use the platform but also the community managers running communities on the platforms. So there have been a lot of really good features that help make running the community easier, and plus with the addition of bots and stuff, helps you customize that experience a bit more. And I've seen some community managers do some crazy stuff, like No More Robots runs like small scale games inside of their discords and stuff. um, but I mean, Reddit's also got some benefits to it as well. I mean, it's easier to archive information, I feel like, on Reddit, since it's more forum style rather than like a constant stream of information. And there's like cool, like you can write your own like moderation scripts and stuff for Reddit that can help with that a lot too.
Yeah, I think
Actually, oh, you go first.
no, please do. Please do.
Uh, um, I actually agree with Discord and Reddit. Based on my experiences, our fan base is really, really big on Discord. They really enjoy chatting with each other on there, and we're able to interact with them in unique kinds of ways. Like, for example, our main Discord moderator does like Q&As as characters on there. So we try to find entertaining ways to just get people engaged through there. And Reddit, I think, is a great source for player feedback, which is essential within the field. I believe, at least. And personally, I like Instagram. I think it offers like a really good visual component, and there's flexibility with stories. I That's pretty much what I have to say. Sorry if
No,
I'm a
that's
little
super
nervous.
interesting.
That was great.
Oh, okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting because it's like there are just so many different platforms that you can find your strength with. And for me, like I don't touch Reddit. Like if I really have to, I'm like, oh God, we're like setting up all the barriers. I have no idea what I'm doing. So for me, my favorite social platforms, like Discord is definitely part of it, though I can find it draining at times because, you know, you're constantly chatting, but I love it. I love Twitter. I love and hate Twitter, actually. Yes, I love and hate Twitter.
That's valid.
Yes.
That's
But
me
it
with
is where
Facebook.
like our main community is, and Discord. And I've recently been playing around with TikTok, which I think has the most interesting community right now. But that could probably be because it's also quite new. But that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, are you finding that because when we are looking for folks to join our community, because essentially that's what a large part of our job is, not just to facilitate community, but also to find other folks and create stuff that is going to allow other folks to feel welcome in our community. Do you have specific platforms that you go to for?
Well, I believe for us, it was honestly not social media that was gaining our audience organically online. It was mostly we had an option through our game where if you wanted to check out our social media channels, you would get a little bit of in-game currency, and a lot of people would check out our social media channel through that. And then through there, gaining our audience online, we were allowed to gain more traction, and people have actually started finding us not until fairly recently through the social media channels and asking us, "Hey, what's this game?" And then they start downloading our game.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
interesting.
actually, on the main menu of Super Mash, we actually have a link to the Discord at the bottom, so it's like kind of a direct route to there. If you're enjoying the game, you can just kind of hop in there.
Yeah, I don't think we've yet. I want to experiment with it, but we haven't done ads or any paid promotions before. So we mainly, and Kid Fox has been around for like 7 years now. So we've really created our community very slowly through like going to events, through doing the social stuff, through talking to press, and kind of really organically growing our community.
Mm-hmm. How is that? I think, especially since events in person and the ways that we maybe traditionally have grown community by just word of mouth in that way are not currently quite available to us. Have y'all found your methods shifting a little bit with the advent of digital events, or perhaps if your game isn't released and they don't have it just easily a Discord link easily accessible on the title screen, are there other ways that you found or really have encouraged folks to join your community and take part?
I feel like the online events have sort of, in their own way, taken over the physical ones,
Mm-hmm.
and in its also own way, it's better sometimes because you do get more people like actually online and very easily just wishlisting your game or discovering it.
Mm-hmm.
Though there's negatives to that too. So we haven't had to luckily like change anything a lot, but it is definitely now more of being on top of all the online events that are happening, being in contact with people online, trying to do all of that has been probably harder just in terms of organization.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since March, where things started turning for I think everyone in the world, um, at computer lunch games beforehand, we were experimenting with Twitch and trying to get our audience engaged more and seeing where we could take things there. But ever since then, we've been doing monthly live streams showing behind the scenes of like what we're doing, what's coming in the next update. And that's been actually taking off surprisingly. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I think during these times, we've been experimenting more with social media for sure. And it's really interesting to see how people are engaging more and in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've definitely experimented a little bit too with like video content and like stuff on social media and trying to figure out giveaways. I think was the hardest because we did a physical merch giveaway in the past, and I was like, "Ooh, it's a little bit hard if I can't be in the office to get the merch." But it's been really interesting to try to adapt with this kind of new normal that we're dealing with, and it's brought a lot of its own interesting challenges. I feel like, but
Mm-hmm.
it's been cool.
Yeah, I love seeing. I know I saw, I think, Kit Fox, Victoria, you experimented with Twitch. I know I've experimented with Twitch as well. So it has been really neat to see areas that maybe haven't been traditionally as used for community development because we've had other opportunities available to us now sort of become, not that they weren't available, but we are now experimenting with them more just partially because of necessity. But it'll be neat to see how that continues to evolve. Um, I think most of us, if not all of us, have had communities throughout varying points of a game's development. So either from the very beginning to the middle to the end. How has been building community different at different points of a game's development? Um, and have you found yourself using the same strategies throughout the entire time or changing it up depending on where the game's at?
I don't want to keep going first if anyone wants to say anything.
I'm just trying to think.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
Okay. Yeah, so in our case, so I've been around since like before a game's idea happened, when it was announced, middle, end. And it definitely does, and I think should change, but I think the problem with that is that it also changes depending on the game. Just depending on like what kind of game it is. Is it online? Is it not? Is it multiplayer? Is it not? That sort of thing. So what was the original question?
So what strategies do you use at like different points of the game's development to like build the community from idea to full game?
Right. You can tell how scattered I am by the fact that I forgot the question halfway through my answer. It's very professional. Yeah, so I would say that especially near the beginning, it's really difficult, especially because a lot of the time you're trying to not say anything about it, because usually you would pitch or save any exclusive big content, like big announcements, like this game exists for press first, and then you would announce the game, and then you would start building it from there. And that, in its own sense, it's like just one, creating hype, creating, like making sure everyone hears about it as soon as possible, because it's one of those things where it's like, a curve where everyone will hear about it and everyone will be really excited and want to join in as part of the fun. And then you get into like the slump of, all right, now I just need to maintain the hype. So that changes strategies a lot. That's more like, okay, we're going to dive deeper into what this game actually is. Probably have less fancy graphics, but in this way, that's when I start just building a community itself and like solidifying it, because the people who stay are the ones who are probably going to be the most invested. And then when you're ramping up for the end game or launch, that again almost becomes the same as the beginning, where you start hiding everything again because you need to save it for the big announcement for press and for streamers and all that. And then the game releases, and then you're in the hype zone, and then you don't sleep for a month, but you should sleep, it's fine. It won't crash and burn. And then, yeah, it's maintaining that kind of thing. And within the middle, you're obviously doing a lot of other activities. You're trying to gather those wish lists. You're trying to make sure everyone doesn't forget that the game exists, and no one's like, are the devs dead? It's like, whatever. And then, so yeah, I think there are very different strategies. There's a very different mindset depending on where you are at during development, and it's sort of having to adapt and having to grow with your community, because you'll start to discover things that I think the community latches onto that you weren't aware that they loved, and you're like, all right, I guess I should give this feedback to the devs, see what we can do with it, and then continue from there.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. When I started working at Digital Continue, it was like 6 months, I think, before out from our PC launch and announcement, which was interesting because we also released the game the day that we announced it. So the real challenge for me was trying to think, like, how do I think the people who, like, what kind of people would be playing this game, and what kind of things do I think they would like, which is definitely a slippery slope, because you have to like really, like, you could be completely wrong and miss the mark, and then you'll have to be like, all right, when the game comes out, then I have to reevaluate, and like Victoria was saying, kind of figure out, okay, so this is how they're actually like interacting with the game and stuff. How can I make that experience better for them,
I think it's really interesting hearing you both talk about how you're promoting different kinds of games, because at least for as long as I've been working for Computer Lunch, I've just been promoting the one game, but we're always having like smaller updates coming out consistently, and with an international audience at the same time. So we need to ask ourselves, like, well, internationally, what does our audience want? And they're also a very science enthused audience. So those are the two main factors that I always think about whenever we're creating a new contest to go on social, or I have to promote this new expansion of reptiles that's coming out. How do I get people who are big reptile fans excited about this?
So during those points in time, like to get people excited, what have you found keeps folks engaged in your community, especially when maybe your game is already out and you're constantly maintaining and updating, or if you have one of those lulls where people are asking if the devs are dead and you need something to keep them engaged?
Oh, that happens to us a lot.
Yeah, that's a tough nut to crack.
I think in the end, the most important thing is just to be genuine with your audience and be upfront. 9 times out of 10, they'll be very understanding, especially if you say, like, for example, Computer Lunch is a relatively small team, and we're always creating new content, even if it's not the stuff that they want. Uh, right now, we are making content at all times, and we're always making sure that the game is running as smoothly as possible and that it's going to be an enjoyable experience for the player. And in the end, they want you to make something that they'll enjoy playing, not rush into making something that they won't like. So if you're genuine about it and you're upfront and honest, I've seen that your audience is usually very appreciative of that.
Yeah, I guess, do you all have any additional things that you do? Maybe different activations or giveaways, fan art contests? Have you found those also help build your community, or do you find they maybe more help sustain community than anything else?
Well, I think it depends first on the frequency, because sometimes I feel
Mhm.
like if you do too many of them, then you get a lot of people who like follow you or join your community who then just kind of join to engage with the contest and then just drop off the face of the earth. But I feel like if you use them tastefully, like there's definitely room to potentially make someone kind of be like, maybe if I just join this Discord, and then eventually kind of hang out a bit more over
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, I it's totally unrelated, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do contests, but I'm sorry. I'm super jaded by contests because I think the last one I did, we got like 2 entries and there were like 3 prizes. I was like, I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing this again.
Oh gosh! Oh no!
I
Our
know.
contests haven't been that low, luckily.
I know. It hurt me. It hurt me. No, it's okay. It was trying to revive a game that was not like dead, but just it's been out for. Anyways, so I haven't done contests in a hot minute. So maybe it's great. I just had to throw that out there. But for us, it's like when I'm trying to maintain the community and get them still excited about the game, it is a lot of yes, being very honest that I know you've been waiting for this game for 4 years and it still isn't out yet, but I swear to God, we're still working on it. Keeping up the updates, especially for us, Boyfriend Dungeon has found a lot of success with its monthly newsletters, and those are written in sort of the voice of the characters themselves, and people find it very enjoyable. So it's really, for me, maintaining the community means interacting with them a lot, just like as human beings, as people, and and it's easier for Boyfriend Dungeon in the sense that it's about dating swords, so it's very like, oh my god, we're dating swords, and Dwarf Fortress is very big, all those kinds of things. So I acknowledge that that is a bit easier, but then again, like I've seen so many games do this so well. It's just like this is the theme of our game, and we're just going to talk to you endlessly about that. Like Backbone is doing it great with like raccoons, like amazing. I think Validate has been doing really well in terms of just talking about dating and the struggles of it. Yeah, so I think there's something to be said about just that human connection of this is how I'm going to keep up with you. And that can be really difficult, but I found it to work.
Hmm. Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning, which is as indies, we do have the opportunity to connect on that human level with our community, whereas it may be harder in a larger space. So we should take advantage of that as much as we can. Um, So one thing that we haven't talked about that I think is really interesting in terms of, especially now that we can have early access games and betas and playtesting, have any of y'all had experience with playtesting with your games?
We
Cool.
have actually. Oh, sorry, I don't want to
Yeah.
interrupt anybody. Cell to Singularity has actually been in early access for about over a year. We just recently released officially on Android earlier this year, which has been an interesting experience. We had to lose all of our ratings on the Play Store and then regain all of them back.
Uh-huh.
But with that aside, uh, we are really focused on making sure that we get a good experience from our players through the players. So we're always encouraging them to join open beta testing, whenever we have a big build come out, we're always saying like, hey, here's the beta testing build as well. And we're very openly posting it on social, encouraging people to download the beta test, and we make it as accessible as possible. Whenever someone emails us asking, hey, can I join the beta? We're like, yes, please. Here's the instructions on how to do it.
No.
Just to to get off on that point, because Zelda Singularity in the end, it's a freemium game, so it's easy for anyone to download it, and it's also it's really kid friendly. We have generally a younger audience playing it, and oftentimes we just get kids just being like, oh well, I want to be a beta tester, can I do that? It's really cute, but we just want everyone to be beta testing as often as possible. We kind of pride ourselves on that, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Catherine or Victoria, have you all done like beta tests with your games, or have you kind of stayed away from that experience?
I haven't really had the opportunity to do that yet, but I'd definitely be interested in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we've done beta tests and play tests with our games, like both in person and online. And those have been really interesting just because I guess so much of it is like, hey, so this game's in beta, like, is it fun? Are you stuck? Because Lucifer Within Us, for example, is a mystery game. And so much of it is asking questions of like, okay, can they actually figure this out, and getting the feedback from there. And also, like, I think one of the most interesting things about beta testing and play testing is that so much of it isn't necessarily just like watching like what they do, but like looking at their face and seeing if they're like you know, like the expressions they're making are like, this is weird, because they might be like, it's great, and then you're like, no, you didn't think that, that's okay. So yeah, no, I think it's a really valuable way to get feedback on your game, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So kind of pivoting, we've talked a little bit about specific platforms, like how you find maybe folks who may be interested in your games. But as a community manager or developer or leader, there's a lot of, I guess, responsibility to help facilitate a space where a community can grow. So I was wondering, what personal characteristics do you think are really contribute to the building of community?
Patience.
Whether, yeah.
Like, patience is probably a good one. Not only in patience in dealing with like sometimes like like difficult community members or people asking the same question 5 times, but also like patience in making sure, like, seeing your community grow over time, because it doesn't happen overnight, you know. I think definitely patience and trying to stay focused and collected, you know, definitely all very useful for community building.
Mhm.
I second that, and also a huge desire to learn. I have learned so much while working for Computer Lunch, whether it's how to attract an international audience, or if it's more about science. I think it's really important to understand that you don't know everything, and trends change all the time. So you need to be open to figuring out what those new trends are and how you can adapt to your fan base.
Yeah, I think definitely agree with both of those. And I think a lot of it is also just like, one, emotional intelligence, and two, like, not, I don't know how to put it, but like the ability to not hate yourself when maybe everyone looks like they hate you. And like, it's still, you're still gonna like feel sad and stuff, but like there's like a skin you have to shed. But especially with like emotional intelligence, I think there's so little emphasis put on how important soft skills are, because it is so hard to measure, right? It's like, how can I measure how kind you are when it's something that should just be happen organically? There's a lot of charisma that goes into it. There's a lot of being able to know when to apply certain like facets of your personality to a situation, depending on like, is someone angry, is someone sad, or like, are they actually angry, or are they sad and just expressing it in a really strange way? And also just I think especially for community devs in studios that are quite large or do different games is actually being able to understand why someone would like this game. So I'm like, this is not a mystery, but like in Kit Fox, like I'm not the biggest fan of all of our games. Like, have I finished all of our games? No, it's like I can't figure out like the Shrouded Isle. I cannot finish it. I've never beaten that game, but that doesn't mean like I don't love it in its own way, because I can see why it's so interesting. I can see why people would attach themselves to it, and I think having the emotional intelligence to see, oh, like this game is exciting because of this and this, is so important for your job for sure, and staying motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. With I totally forgot earlier because we were talking about setting up, and maybe this is actually a good segue. We have expectations, you know, for ourselves, how we help lead the community, but what really helps are our moderators within communities. Have you found, I guess, good tips or tricks or strategies to find those moderators, those like stars in your community that you can bring in and help or have help you?
I can definitely speak on this from both sides. So I do community moderating for fun outside of work because I'm weird and I think it's fun. But also, like, I've also set up guidelines and stuff for moderation teams in the past and stuff. So definitely one thing that I like looking out for is just kind of seeing how they interact with people. Are they being helpful? Are they following the rules? I mean, that's definitely like a basic minimum requirement, but yeah, like just seeing how they interact with the community and stuff, and do they uh, understand how to talk to the other people in the community, and are they contributing in ways which are helpful and positive, you know, because the moderators are, in my opinion, like kind of like the faces of the community, I guess, outside of like the developers or the specifically whoever the admin for the server is and such. Like they're kind of like the community members that people know that they can go to when they need help. So I definitely think that's I lost my train of thought at the end of that sentence. But yeah, I think that's definitely an important thing to keep in mind when looking for moderators.
Yeah. Is there anything else you all wanted to add to that?
I
It's
don't
okay
have
if
too
not.
much experience with moderators compared to some of the other stuff we were talking about earlier, but I would say also to an extent there needs to be some sort of engageability about the moderator based on our Discord presence. Like I said, for example, like our head moderator who manages other moderators who are volunteers, he is always making sure that there's something fun going on in the Discord and that the community doesn't die. So I think just being attentive and knowing how to engage your audience when they want to be engaged with is a really important trait to find in a moderator.
Yeah, I think their moderators are definitely sort of your not ideal community members, but community members that one follow the rules but don't feel they're above it, won't go power hungry, you know, all that kind of fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to find some does take some work on your end, and I think making sure that they also know the kind of emotional toll moderating can take is a big factor and part of it. So when I find my moderators, it is the people who are interacting usually a lot within the Discord, but also who I know, like, okay, you know what this entails, you know the emotional like things that happen when it comes to moderating, and I think moderators are a blessing to the world.
I
Yeah,
So
agree.
much.
I agree. Um, so we have just a few minutes left, and I want to make sure we have time to answer all of the questions I see coming up in chat. So the first question here is going back to Instagram. So it's not really a gaming platform; it's more photos, so animals, selfies, etc. We've had little success on Instagram, but with gaming being so niche over there in general, how do you recommend using it as a promotional and community building platform?
I like that question a lot.
a good
Oh,
question.
I'm just a big Instagram fan in general. Like, content management, community management aside, I think it's a great platform because it offers such great visuals. Um, but it is really tricky because it's the one that I find you need to be most attentive with in terms of hashtags. You need to make sure that you're using ones that are relevant and that you're not spamming hashtags to the point where you'll be flushed out of the algorithm. It's all really tricky. But just based on what I like to do on Instagram, I would always recommend um, making sure that your thumbnail is as visually enticing as possible. Make sure that you're hitting all the basics with color and value, composition. Make sure that it's eye grabbing, and also make sure that your content is a little bit relatable. Keep an eye on the popular memes that are out nowadays. Like, honestly, memes are where it's at.
Yeah, so I don't work with Instagram much anymore. Like Kid Fox has one, but I've given up on it mainly because I find Instagram more useful for mobile games, and this is just my experience in working. So I used to work for Pocket Gems, who and I on the game that they worked on Episode. So I was working on Episode, and that was actually Instagram was our main community, and that was the place where it was our main community building platform. And what works for us was like Instagram ads. It was like making sure we had relatable, fun content. It was the demographic skewed female and slightly younger. So maybe that was at the time like what Instagram was all about. So I think it's being able to figure out who you're actually talking to on Instagram and what Instagram is looking for. And that usually is aesthetics, usually is some sort of beautiful memery in its own way, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. So for the next question from Hopping Fun, um, let's see. Yeah, but publishers open a marketing channel to an audience, spend money on a lot on customer acquisition, and then really, really need content that feeds a particular audience. Steam and Valve are general and broad, but are there channels and ecosystems they could develop within? So kind of, I guess, are there places within Steam, because it is a very huge platform, that you can focus on as a community person and really build your community there?
That's an interesting question.
Hmm.
I think because personally, and I'm not sure, because Steam is so general and broad, and you don't necessarily know its algorithms very well, and because you don't get much control over it, you do use it for like monthly updates, and I've seen people do live streams and be quite successful with live streams, and use the forums and whatnot. But I haven't found it to be a great discovery tool. More of just a maintenance for people who don't want to like hop onto our social media. Uh, and even then, I try to channel them to our own social media because it feels like we get a little bit more control over the messaging and also the formatting and all of that stuff, because Steam is like there for a very specific thing, while I find that social media is to build the community part of it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of mine.
Yeah. Cool.
I agree with you. Sorry, just to chime in real quick. We have a small Steam community, but we don't really use it as like a promotional means. But it is a good way to forge a small community that is looking to be really helpful, especially if you do have a game that is an open access, early access, and you want to get feedback from them. It's a good idea, I think, to just be consistent with blogging and updating them based on what's going on in the game, whether it's a new update or if it's just something fun, to just be consistent and be constantly asking them for feedback.
Mm-hmm. And I think a good thing to note about the Steam forums is that, like, if you have a game on Steam, it's like gonna have a forum whether you want to or not. So that's kind of probably going to be one of the first places where, if you're buying a game on Steam, like, people are going to funnel into, since it's literally part of the overall client and stuff. So it's definitely it can be a bit rough sometimes, but like you can definitely find some useful feedback in there
Mm-hmm.
from people who are just starting to play your game and such.
Yeah, and this is a good transition from Jim Panda. How do you stay engaged with your audience when the hype has died down after launch?
I'm still exploring this one myself. This one's an interesting, another tough nut to crack, but something I've been trying to do in my own community is just starting more casual conversations. Because I was talking to some community managers recently, and someone made a very good point that, like, there's a good chance that not everybody who is in your community channel, like your Discord or whatever, has not. There's a chance they haven't played the game yet. So, kind of using those more casual conversations to kind of ease new people into maybe trying the game or getting involved, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I assume the question is because, like, let's say you have one game and you're now in the midst of developing another game and you don't have other things to kind of entertain people with. Like, either through DLC is amazing, like other console or platform launches, always big news and great. But if you don't have that to stay engaged with your community when the hype has died down, one of the things that we've actually discovered is that a lot of people will not know about your game, so we still will try to see if we can get into events sometimes with older games. If we're really, this was before when we had less games to promote. Now that we have enough, it's not really the thing. But basically, I think after post launch, it's now it will have, you will have a drop off. I think that's inevitable, but I think being able to now be able to talk to those people who stay in your community and are big fans is actually great, and you should be focusing your efforts there rather than still trying to like gather people into your net. It's now time to just buckle down and be like, all right, where's our core community? How do we talk to them? What can we do to reward them in terms of like staying around?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Hopping Fun also asked, ooh, and this is fun because this is community manager's dream list right here. Wondering what Steam and other huge platforms could do to help community managers or publishers better. Like, would you like more control within the platform? I know, get your gears turning. So what could platforms do to help support the work that community managers do?
I think with past experience with Steam, I do wish that they would update their moderation UI a little bit because it's a bit difficult to navigate. I think that's probably the first thing that comes to mind with that question.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't find Steam to be the most navigatable software or platform to be posting on. Um, at least for me, just as a user, when I'm going on there and I'm looking to download some games, I can't easily find like forums of um, for communities that I want to be a part of very easily. And even still, I as a community manager, I wish it was also easier to just keep track of like all of the content that I'm publishing on there. I do find that it gets pretty buggy overall, and I wish it was just a little bit more reliable in general in terms of posting and keeping track of the content I'm putting up there.
Yeah, I think I agree with everyone. It's just it's difficult to navigate. It's hard to remember sometimes what you need to do. Um, and I think just like the sheer amount of documentation there is that you need to keep track of, and it's not very user friendly, basically. And I think being able to control your forums more, to be able to moderate it or self moderate it a little bit better would be helpful. And even then, it's like so much of it, I think, and this is maybe less community manager, more marketing. It's just the discoverability of games has always been an issue, especially, of course, because there's so many games coming out, which all deserve attention. So I think being able to talk to Steam and Valve more just about what's happening and kind of strategies would be very interesting. But
Yeah. Let's see. We have time for, I think, maybe one or two more questions. So folks in chat want to also like try and get one last question, feel free. But while they're brainstorming and thinking of that, I was wondering if you all had like one thing that you learned or a favorite tip from being a community manager, community developer, that you wish you had known at the beginning and would love to pass on to anyone hoping to be in community? Whether it's like a really easy way to make a GIF that you finally learned, or a trick to self-care. We all would love to know that trick. So any fun tips or tricks that you wish you knew when you started?
Oh my god, if you want to take a super quick screenshot without having to like save the file and then like clutter up your folder, if you hit Windows key Shift S at the same time, you can like drag it and it captures just like a section of whatever you want. Oh, it's been so good. It's been so good.
Yeah, Gyazo's also really good for that too. I've been using Gyazo a lot.
Oh.
Yeah, Gyazo has like screenshot and GIF making things. It's a free thing you download, you make an account. And that's pretty good for quick stuff like that, especially.
Oh yeah, I use Gyoza as well.
Oh, have I?
Is it Gyoza or Gyazo? I can't tell.
Oh, okay. I guess I've been missing out on this.
Yeah,
it's great. It's free.
Oh, really? Oh, dang. Okay. Well, to look into that. And I think maybe that segues into a really good thing, which is there's always something to learn from other community managers.
Mm-hmm.
I think being able
that's
to
a great tip.
being able to keep in touch with different community devs and just not being afraid to be like, hey, I'm doing this. Do you have any tips or advice or whatever? I find all of us tend to be very open with our information and very helpful.
Mhm.
And just having someone who knows what you're going through is very nice.
Yeah, I've learned so much from just talking to other CMs. It's been great.
So we have just a few. Oh, did you have one more that you wanted to share?
Oh, just one real quick one. I think also don't be afraid to ask for a break every once in a while.
Yes.
Because this kind of job can take a toll on some mental health, I would say.
Yeah, I think definitely one thing I learned, especially in like my first job, I was very encouraged to like, if things are looking pretty rough, it's okay to step away for 5 minutes to just kind of keep yourself collected and stuff. Or else you're not going to do your best when you're stressed like that, and it's not going to help anybody, and you deserve the break anyhow. So just take a breather if you have to.
Yep. I usually think I'm like, nothing will explode in 5 minutes. Like nothing will break, even though you might feel like it. 5 minutes is good. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and sharing all of these insights on building community and growing community. Before we head out, I'd love to have everyone maybe just reintroduce themselves again, maybe say where folks can find you really quickly, just in case they would like to just see what else y'all do. We can start with Emily.
Hello, I'm Emily. I am the content creator and assistant producer at Computer Lunch Games. You can find us at Computer Lunch or Cell to Singularity, and you can find me individually at EAGrim on Instagram.
Hi, I'm Catherine Litvaitis. I'm the social marketing manager at Digital Continue. You can find us at Digital Continue on basically everything: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Discord. You can find me on Twitter as well. Just search my name. There is nobody else with my name.
Perfect. So I'm Victoria Tran, the communications director at KitFox Games. You can find KitFox on Twitter and mainly every social platform at KitFox Games. I'm on Twitter at the VTran. And thank you so much, Jenny, by the way, for moderating.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And again, I'm Jenny. I'm a communications manager for Rose City Games. And you can find us at Rose City Games on Twitter. And you can find me at Kimchika25 on Twitter as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining. I hope y'all had a good time discussing community. I hope this was a nice break from daily activities. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.